coming? Oh. So maybe we start. I don't think I need speakers. We found our third panelist, so Judy's on her way. In the interest of time and also to make sure you get a well-deserved coffee break in 40 minutes thereabouts. Welcome to the roundtable on AI for education, the last mile. With me is Judy K. and Kalina Yacef. What we want to do in roughly 8 minutes each thereabouts is to look at the issue of AI on the last mile of AI from three angles. Kalina will talk a bit about the kind of environments and the kind of data we need from the user, from the students to put AI methods, make them really useful for informing their learning, and either directly or via a teacher. The challenge being that many of the really good data, informative data, come from very specialized interfaces and are grounded in a deep understanding of the tasks students have to solve and to learn about. Judy will talk a bit about how to then, sort of the next step is how to represent information back to students. And of course, we can have as good data as we want. If they are not understandable and interesting to students and teachers, whoever the user, the main recipient, then they will be no good because they will cannot be effective. And I will end with a short spiel on how to sort of think perhaps about the idea of AI as a tool. So not only to support learning, but to support your work, problem solving, once you left the learning context. So make it move from the conduit as a learning tool per se to a performance support tool, perhaps best captured. So can I ask you, Kalina, to begin? And some of us have slides and others not. And we found out that this mouse doesn't work only under very specific conditions. So we'll probably stay away from the machine. Very much in the spirit of this session, I guess.
I know, it would be good if that desk wasn't there and it would be a bit more. Anyway, thanks, Peter. So, yeah, can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay. So I'm Kalina Yacef. I work at the Faculty of Engineering and IT in the School of Computer Science. We've just renamed our school about 5 days ago, so it's hot off the press. I've been working in AI in education and educational data mining for a long time now. I've worked a lot with Peter and with people in education as well, obviously, because it's a very multidisciplinary field. And one thing that I would like to talk to you about today is something that is a little bit of a passion of mine, which is how to empower teachers. So in the early days of AI, we were trying to replace people by doing, creating all these smart technologies to replace them. And my PhD was actually on this, to actually not replace them, but to empower them. So rather than calling intelligent teaching systems, I was calling intelligent teaching assistant systems. Because teachers are great, humans are great, aren't we? Huh? Raise your arm if you agree. We're smart, we're adaptable, we've got passion, we've got motivation, we are fantastic, but sometimes we need some help, obviously. And AI offers fantastic tools. It's just that they have to be used smartly. So here the issue is how to join these two strengths between teachers and AI. When I say AI, I'm not talking about robotics, etc. I'm talking about data, exploitation of data here. I'm restricting to this. So there are two main things that can be done here. The first one is how to help teachers while they're teaching. So we know that teaching one-on-one is the best, right? So trying to scale up these fantastic resources that teachers are to a maximum number of, well, a larger number of students, that's one thing where AI can help, where data mining can help. The other one is how to help teachers improve their teaching. So it's more like a reflection, an ad hoc process where teachers go back on whether they've taught the right way and what happened and where they can improve, what worked, what didn't work, etc. So back to the first one, so helping teachers while they teach. So there are different things that can be done. The first one is if, of course, in a truly utopian world where teachers could be behind where there were in infinite resources and we could have teachers behind every learner, then we wouldn't need that. But when you have large classes, of course, you don't know what's happening exactly in everybody's head, and you can't follow everything. So using technology to try and help students practice and then feedback to the teacher what students are doing as they're doing it is extremely powerful. So there are lots of projects that we've all worked on here where, for example, we were helping students work in groups, for example, and we had different groups that were working, and we were collecting data because, of course, technology is not pervasive to everything. So students use technology, so there's a power of capturing this data. And we were able to have, for example, exploiting the data of understanding what students' groups were doing as they were doing it. So, for example, one was when they were building software, so we could monitor in real time what activity they were doing, and then go and see the groups that needed attention for various reasons. There could be one person is doing all the work and the other one is not, or there's a lack of progress, etc. So with all this data, we developed a few interfaces, and we were using that as a way to initiate the discussion with the group to help them with their work. We also had a project using interactive tabletops. So that was deployed in teaching classes here, where students were working around tabletops, and the teacher would walk around with an iPad, knowing exactly what the progress was. So here was an interesting story. We had developed an AI tool that helped detecting in real time the moments where groups were collaborating based on their interactions, etc. And we built a very good classifier with over 90% accuracy, so the teacher could walk around and know this group is collaborating, this one is not, etc. So I'm going to go and see what's happening. But the teacher didn't understand it. Of course, we're saying this is a radar, they are not collaborating, these ones are. Why would the teacher trust it? So I think the technology was a bit too cocky, too presumptuous in making the teacher trust that technology. So we had to revert back to something much more simplistic that the teacher would understand. And this is where a lot of progress has been done and continues to be done to try and make this data understandable for teachers, actionable for them, and they have to trust the information that they see. We had, so there's also one more example. At CMU, there's a PhD student doing very cool research using smart glasses. So it's a bit the same principle. The teacher walks around and with the smart glass would see hands raising up when students are stuck. That's cool. Okay, the technology is not saying what the problem is, etc., but they're just saying, hey, go and see this one before you go and see this one, because this one looks like they're more in trouble. So this is also a cool kind of research. So anyway, so there's a lot of research that is done on how to intervene, when to intervene, who to go and see first, etc. So it helps the teachers just orchestrate a bit more their teaching. The other one is after the class has been done, so at the end we've got all this data, and the teacher then, again with the right interfaces, can reflect back on what has been done. So here again we've had lots of projects, And Jessica, actually in the room, is also doing her PhD on a work related to this, where she's helping teachers. She's trying to build a technology where she's helping teachers assess the quality of the feedback that is given to them as they do their programming assignments. So this is, again, not providing the solution, but it's sort of scaffolding the data, scaffolding the information for the teacher to then reflect and take action. So just to sum up, there's a wealth of data. This is only useful if it's fed back in appropriately for teachers. And if we don't design interfaces and if we don't design systems that can explain to the teacher exactly what they see and why, then we are not going to have these accepted by practitioners, by teaching in their practice. So this is where the research now is heading, and I think that the fear that AI will replace the teacher is also has also to be tackled along, because we're not trying to replace teachers, we're just trying to empower them, and so there's a real partnership that needs to be developed there. I think that's it for now. Yeah.
So the idea is that that's okay with you, that we do this short statements, short, and then have the discussion after. So if you have questions or comments, write them down now so that you don't forget. Judy, do you need your slides? Do you have a VGA?
I have both.
Because this thing the mouse doesn't work, so it's very difficult to get to anything. But we can try the VGA, that works. My apologies, I didn't get it up in time.
What about this guy? I'll just plug in.
I didn't get it on the main station running because the mouse is like not really functional. Can I connect this here? USB-C?
The other side. They want you left-handed. Oh, I see.
That would be good. And then it's the laptop, huh?
Yep. Oh, sorry, and...
which is may or may not. Oh, we have two even, but no input.
Let me just pull it out and then plug it in. Then we have to be a bit patient.
Yep, something happens.
Usually. And I see this doesn't work.
No,
So.
well...
Okay.
What happened now? Something happened here. Is it? Was it up?
I also have it on Google Slides.
Yeah, that was the problem. I can't get because the mouse doesn't work.
It did then? No?
No, see.
We just put something under it to see if... There's the mouse, maybe.
Yeah, maybe we can get to... Yeah, there's an idea of a mouse.
But I don't understand
when you plugged it in, when it was still on resident PC, it was showing. So it was only when you switched it over to laptop that it disappeared. So maybe try unplugging it one more time.
Okay, let's try it again.
This is such a... No, I lost my thing. Taurus.
Well, at least you can fight that while I
I'll fight this.
now switch over.
Why does that?
Oh, wow, look at that. So you can play with this while I speak.
While you're getting irritated.
I can also lend you, oh, maybe not. Oh, thank you. Okay, so finally, open learner models. We could even turn down the lights, but that's all right. Can I briefly ask people to quickly introduce themselves so I know? Would that be all right?
I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
Disciplines, faculties.
That would work, yeah.
Well, I just wonder if yes, not introduce. Just say who you are and where you're from. Just.
Psychology.
Student.
CRLI and primary school teaching.
Cool. Yep.
Eric, PhD
Ian? Education.
We just take a representative sample. Something completely not in the scope.
Okay.
Michael, aging professor.
Okay.
Retired IT person.
Okay.
Dwayne, I just finished Masters of Learning Sciences.
CRLI, PhD student.
Courtney, kind of cognitive science stuff.
Darren, lecturer in education.
Tony, business school and Airfield student.
Any education and education. Maeve, education. Any active.
Engineering, teaching, research further in text analytics in GS.
Susan, educational professor in China.
Oh, wow. Okay. You came all the way.
Shivani, a PhD student in learning management.
Yeah, nice to see you.
PhD student at CRLI.
Okay, so the reason I asked that is I like to have a model of my audience because I'm big on modelling people to support communication. So Peter, I think, made up this title, and I thought it was pretty good. Succinct, to the point, and covers a whole lot of things. But I will quickly ask you if you could please put up your right hand if you have heard of open learner models before, and left hand if you haven't. Both hands if you don't understand the question. Okay, so we've got a fair mix here. Scrutability, not a word we normally use. It's one of these English words
That you made up.
that I did not make up. It's in the dictionary. It's under the difficult words. We talk about inscrutability because people, frankly, are inscrutable. None of us understand each other, okay? And I think that's fine because we didn't design ourselves. However, when we build computers, I'm a computing person, and I think it's time, I have actually for a very long time wanted us to build systems so that a human being at any stage could turn around and say, well, 1 minute, why did you do that? And what's going on here? And I think that we can thank Facebook and some rather unpleasant stuff around an election in Cambridge Analytica. We can actually thank all those people for the fact that people are now starting to say, we really want to understand our systems. Because frankly, computer scientists have not even been trying to build them so that anyone could ask questions. And, well, you can ask questions, you just can't find any answers. And the notion of giving learners agency, because if you have to, I mean, we've done studies where we had interfaces where we purposely did the wrong thing, hoping the student would dig into why. And when they were interviewed afterwards, they said, sure, I noticed I was doing the wrong thing. Computers do that all the time. That's what I live with. The notion that we were building a system that they could find it and fix it was totally alien. I think that might be ready to change. Okay, so I want to first start with learning analytics because I think they've done a much better job of getting their word out. I guess I'll do a little survey, right hand up if you've heard of learning analytics, left if you haven't. You're a special person. You're only one left hand. They've done a much better job of selling themselves than open learner modelling, which has been around for decades. So let's see what some of the poobahs in the field describe it as. I'll let you read it, because I learnt from a metacognitive person that people can do that if you shut up. So this was from some people from the field, and to my mind, and very unkindly, feel free to quote me, what I see in learning analytics is people look around and say, oh, there's some data, let's do a graph. Whereas, it's a bit unkind, whereas I'd really like us to say, well, what would we like to know? How about we start collecting the data so that we can find it out? So open learner models, learner, the student, people think learner model's better than student model. I think some people use each. But it's a machine's representation of the learner. Usually, historically, in computing, there's been a lot of work in the AI ed field on modelling knowledge and misconceptions and trying to track those. But, you know, others do other things. And some systems have some very fancy learner models. Frankly, we computer scientists tend to despise simplicity. If you can build a harder, more complex one, why not? I actually don't see people answering the question, what benefit do you get from this complex solution? Because intuitively we expect a complex AI system to be harder to explain than something that's very simple. I might be wrong, but it seems likely. So AI ed and intelligent tutoring systems are the fields that have been around for decades, and we're now in the AI summer, so we should be getting somewhere. What are the key ideas? And there can be, it's a bit broader than this, but a lot of the work has said we really want to represent one learner's progress somehow, because we could use a learner model to drive personalisation. Like if you know all these bits, we could move you on to something you don't know, and so on. So I have a 3-step process for doing this. 1, identify your learning outcomes. 2, collect some evidence about progress on them. And 3, share them with the learner. How easy could that be? It's really quite simple. We just haven't the faintest idea how to do it very well. Because all of this suddenly becomes HCI. It's about how do you define the learning objectives at the right level? I mean, I could make 300 learning objectives, or 20 for every 10-minute block of my class, which is quite a lot. Or I could name 5 or 6. It makes a big difference for what the interface looks like and what someone can learn from it. Perhaps you need something more modest so someone can drill down when they want to know more. Collect evidence. We ought to know that we don't have all the evidence. Yes, you can have a little kid doing maths and the system's tracking all their maths, but hell, they have a life outside that program, and they could well have actually learned some maths somewhere outside. So this is going to be a very inexact process, and we should know the evidence is really basically sort of rubbishy. And then we share that rubbish with the learner in a way that enables them to work out what they can discover about themselves. So here's one of the very early, really nice systems by Tanja Mitrovic from New Zealand, where she was teaching SQL. It doesn't matter what that is, but it had the curriculum basically had 6 main parts. And as a student moves through it, the green bits get bigger. The red bits might also get bigger if they show misconceptions, if they get things wrong. And the white bits should get smaller. And she did very nice studies that showed that students benefited, especially, unsurprisingly, the weaker students. You get a ceiling effect with the top students. They learn in spite of us, right? But this sort of thing was quite useful. And this is really potentially quite simple. In her case, it wasn't, because the background representation was really complex. So Susan Bull and I have had this passion from open learner models. We can't quite remember where the term came from, but we think it's about 20 years old. It's frankly a really bad term for a whole lot of reasons, if you wish to ask me later, but I think we're going to have to stick with it, because when a term is 20 years old, it's got a history. And so we wrote a bunch of papers, but more recently we've started to try and connect with the learning analytics world, because the learning analytics world has been less focused on students. So what do? I actually think we should link with the world of personal informatics and quantified self. Personal informatics is from the UbiConf field. I don't expect anyone to have heard of it. What about quantified self? Right hand up if you've heard of that, left if you haven't. Okay, still, oh, and some people are learning a lot, great. So quantified self is these people who could be unkindly described as being a little self-obsessed. They collect lots of data and watch themselves really carefully. But I mean, to be fair, I've been to a meetup a couple of times, and there was one person, for example, who discovered he had high blood pressure. He did not want to have to take drugs, and he decided he would run little personal experiments. I will try and walk more, I will try and do this more, and see how it affects my progress. And so he collects lots of data and tests out personal hypotheses. I'd love to see more of that in education, but I think these 4 fields don't talk to each other. Learning analytics, open learner modelling, personal informatics, which is more about things like Fitbits, and personal informatics is all sorts of UbiComp stuff, ubiquitous computing, and then quantified self. So here's the common bit. Zimmerman, you know, one of these highly cited group of people who talk about all these forms of self-reflection, forethought and performance. This sort of cycle that if you're going to achieve some goal, there is a process where, most importantly, this self-reflection here is really important. If we can give you information so you can reflect, then you can do some planning, goal setting, whatever, and maybe you can change something you do, maybe. We know that's really hard when it comes to changing diet. We've personally done work on getting people to eat vegetables. almost futile. But, you know, we've got lots of other things we've tried to do, and if people want to do them, these interfaces could be helpful. So it's all about metacognitive processes, and my vision is to pull them together and empower individuals to harness their own data. And one of the reasons, I showed this morning, about what are the big problems. This, I guess, right hand up. Who's heard of this book? Left if you, right if you have, left if you haven't. Okay. Gee, she's a lot of left hands, so everybody's in good company. So she wrote about some terribly stupid things people have done with numbers. And I mean, one of them is that a teacher got fired because her kids in, shall we say, year 4, whatever it was, did some standardised test and they appeared not to have progressed from the year before. And she was given a really hard time. It's really sad to read the chapter. But in fact, the teacher in the year before had been gaming the system and faking the results, which of course, if you do this high-stakes rubbish, that's what people will do. So we've really got to do something to get past that. And helping people set their own goals, look at their own data, seems a great starting point. Doesn't solve everything. I emphasise this quote here, which I'll give you a moment to read. So to me, this is one of the big problems of education. We have a lot of stuff we can measure, so we decide that's got to be important. And we might just ignore what matters. And as you can see, this guy was around a while ago. So the driving question, I think, is what uses an interface onto learning data. It could be metacognition. And here are some few examples. I showed this morning. This is Word. Word, which has millions of facilities. There must be things I need to know that I don't. So the blue is the stuff this person knows. The red is what a lot of other people use. And the bottom one shows you an overlay. Not the world's best interface, but it's all right. This is Peter Brusilowski, who's done heaps of work on this. I showed this morning. The green is my progress on various bits of programming. So the top left is variables, and this person's doing really well. The blue is the group, whatever that means. I despise comparing against a group. Why should you commit yourself against a group? Why not have the teacher set what would be a good standard, or maybe what a high distinction means, or a person who's going to be successful in life, or if you just want to be a bare pass person. I mean, it's your call. But in the middle is showing you how they compare. They did a lot of work, and the reason I like this picture is they compared a whole lot of interfaces, and we need to do a lot more of this. We need to mix HCI, human-computer interaction studies of real people doing stuff, with whatever we can produce with our tools. A student of mine built this thing, which the interface is not wonderful, but he had a programming course in C, and you can hardly see it, but there are all these dots. You can see the black ones, which is what the student knows, so that's cool. The white ones disappear. And this is a zoomed in view. The nice thing is you can actually click on any one of those and say, why does the system think I know this or not? And even cooler, I'm not showing it because the interface is a little ugly. There is where I can learn more. So you can go and fix your not knowing. And this was also another one showing you against the teacher's ideal model. Black is you meet the target, green is you're ahead, and yellow you're behind. And white, we're not up to that, so it really doesn't matter. Lots of ways to show this, probably more confusing. What are my key lessons? You need to work out what the learning objectives are for the teacher, for the learner. Somehow you need to map something so you can see something. And you need to know how you're going, and I think you do need reference models. In the case of health, you might want to compare against, you know, am I walking as much as they recommend for being healthy? I don't care about the average, and most Australians are overweight and don't get enough exercise. Why would I want to compare myself with them? What I really want to know is some meaningful thing, and teachers should give that. That's it.
Can I use your thing?
Yes.
Since we managed to get there, I don't want to... Thanks, Judy. I promise to be short. No. In particular, because different from Kalina and Judy, I've been doing fairly little research on this in the last years. So what I want to do, if this ever comes up again, which it doesn't, what am I seeing now? I think we lost the laptop. Is that me? That's not me. That's not what I had on my screen. Well, then I use, I think we are back to here. I should have stopped you quicker to not press.
Is it not that
No.
good tab? Is it another tab?
What tab? Sorry.
1, 2, 3 tabs up the top. 2018 AI in education.
I don't even see it.
Your browser.
It's on your computer.
It's set on my account, but it doesn't show what I want to see. Okay, let's try something else. I don't know what I see. I just my thing disappeared. My screen disappeared. I don't think. Oh, there we are. Am I here? Where's my mouse? I can't see my mouse. Ah, das ist dual screen stuff. Okay. I can't get my mouse. There we are. I see something different here than there. It's still not good. Okay, so I just want to sort of end with maybe sort of fitting with also a bit of a view of intelligent tutoring systems and support systems. And I think you've seen from Judy's presentation, once you have data and even insights and learner models, there's still a huge range of options to go. So an option I want to add to this is not so much on the display side, but on the use side, as I said. So a typical way, and one we sort of fairly understand to many ways, is, you know, given that we have a learner on the left side and then some more or less intelligent tutoring system mediated or not through a teacher, that works fine for learning, at least to some extent. But I think there's now a larger version of what IT can do for us, and that is not only help us in the learning situation, but also then to transfer it in practice, right, into real problem solving. So if we have now all these AI tools being developed, why should we leave them behind and just use them for learning? Right? They're also designed to solve problems. Actually, part of the thing that makes AI tools for learning interesting is they can solve problems with you and for you and show you how, help you with guidance and all that kind of stuff. So they have a considerable amount of intelligence built in. So I guess the next sort of scenario is one where we don't only give the learner the tutor, but also we give the learner the infrastructure behind the tutor, the tutoring system. Right? And I don't have time to show you an example, but one example I wanted to show was the IBM debater. You have me right hand to have seen the IBM debater, Watson debater, never? You've seen that? It's basically a tool that can engage in debates with people in a room. It's used in business cases and business teams that make decisions to sort of break group thinking, right? The computer will sit there, will listen to talk live, and will come up with counter-arguments to your favorite argument counter. You say, well, you say that, but my evidence, and it just searches in the background, right? It searches the web while you talk. And that, I found counter-evidence against your argument. Now, typically, that makes a great tutoring environment for in business schools, for instance, right? To teach that kind of team decision making about business decisions. But obviously it's also something that can really help you in your work context. So that's a bit of the idea, right? The other thing is that the IBM debater is actually an open architecture. So you can actually use that as a service, right? You can take that into your work life. And I think that's a bit the idea. And just in terms of questions, so this would be the, you can look it up. I Google it on YouTube, and you'll find a nice video, also for some of the developers. So I think that sort of creates a new set of challenges for computer interaction, computer interaction research. So on the computational side, but there are, it's not new problems in the sense and challenges. We have had that in a long time. End user programming, highly customizable interfaces. It just now means to extend that into the world of AI tools, right? So where the computation services have some extent of intelligence, and they are dynamic and continue and learning along with the user. So I guess the challenge is really one level up, but there's also more support to do that based on AI methods. So I think it means from the computational side to develop toolkits like IBM started to develop with its API to Watson technology for configuring AI tools that are used for learning to sort of make them useful in work context as well. Right? And from the human side, it means sort of trying to understand, what does it mean to learn and to work, not only learn from these tools, but sort of to use them and solve problems with these tools that are underlying our educational systems. And I think most challenges are likely in the beyond the foundational issues are probably in the design realm. So how do we design for unanticipated use? Particularly difficult and interesting question here, because AI tools are by themselves, by their very nature, are dynamic. They are self-learning. They continue to change as you use them. They are connected with other AI tools which learn with their users as they are deployed. And so they are basically, by definition, it's not fully anticipatable. It's not anticipatable not only what the user will do with them, but also how the tool itself will develop over time. And that creates a whole new challenge for designers, obviously. So these are concepts of designing for unanticipated use and under-designing, and sort of to bring the user actually into the role of the final tool developer, or distinguishing between tool that the designer decides and instrument that the user has to create out of that tool to come to productive use or learning is I guess a bit on the agenda. Yeah, I guess that's all I wanted to say. So just sort of you've seen where we are currently, and a lot of research possible there still, but there might also be a possible near future that is, I find quite exciting. And it comes, I think, builds again to Kalina's argument that you try to empower the user, right? If the user is a teacher, if it's a student, and here I'm thinking mainly of the student as being somebody who should not only learn from AI, but also learn how to use that AI for her continuing professional life. And that's an interesting design challenge. Okay, I think we have 10 minutes or so for questions and discussions. Sorry about the technical hiccup. Double displays drive me crazy. Okay. Thank you. Can the two of you come to the front? Judy, I usually take these things, but...
Yes, I know. Very, very useful.
So do you have questions, comments, other visions of AI, or worries that... It's more positive.
Like with regards to the idea of like AI tools or this conception, I think there was a nice phrase I read recently in Terry Sanowski's he's got a new book on AI and this sort of thing, and he used the term cognitive appliances to talk about a certain usage of AI, and I think that's got a couple useful connotations. One of them, obviously even the state of the art of machine intelligence is still a very narrow form of intelligence, and I think in the short to medium term that's going to remain the case. So it's really about mapping a specific form of intelligence onto a kind of a problem, an appliance is a machine that solves a certain kind of problem or does a specific sort of task. So I think our job as learning designers and HCI people is finding those tasks that we can map very effectively a specific form of machine intelligence onto a problem that can fit into this bigger picture, right? So I don't know, I guess that's more comment to the question, but if you can respond to that.
Yeah, I guess it resonates a bit with the theme of not having a fixed solution, but one that you develop with the user / learner.
But I guess also what it brings is, because it's transforming the way people think, people work. When you augment people with these cognitive appliances, you change the way they can work.
Right, exactly.
And this is also bringing a big challenge in creating such technology, because it's got to be accepted by people. And so there's a work hand in hand to be done, and progressively. I always refer to a bit of a dance. You go as close as possible to the current situation, and progressively you try and help the user get used to these appliances, right, and build smarter and smarter technologies. But it's a journey, I think.
Thank
e-appliance? No, sorry. Someone had their hand up.
That's
No, it was only to ask why you said the last mile. But wait,
I'll come to that.
come back.
Yeah.
I was just going to e-appliance analogy is interesting because I never think of my toaster as being connected to my iron.
Right.
And they don't talk to each other and they have nothing to do with their kind of, distinct things. But my
They
question,
will.
my question is about how do you feel, panelists feel about some of the, the taxonomy, the way that we're using some of these terms. So human-computer interactions, great, makes sense to me, but more frequently in my work, I'm hearing technology-enhanced learning being applied to anything that has to do with AI, any kind of machine, any computing system. How do you feel about the way people are using these terms? Do they mean anything to us?
Well, I think we could go down a rabbit hole defining intelligence. As a computer science person, I won't even try. Artificial intelligence is even worse, and it's had lots of meanings. Frankly, I think a lot of people, and I have actually read very esteemed people saying this, so it's not just me, that it basically many people think it means machine learning now. Or when there is machine learning, they call it artificial intelligence. And certainly robots fit the bill. So firstly, I think it's a problem. We don't really know what it means. And in a sense, who cares? Except that perhaps we should sit down and work out, there's certainly a bunch of techniques of machine learning that we know are available that we could learn to use. And the cognitive augmentation, I mean, those ideas have been around too, and that's useful. Smart toaster.
Yeah. Right.
The notion of, what you call cognitive appliances, or maybe an older term, cognitive tools, I think that's actually a useful way to describe things. But I actually think that we need, as researchers, as academics, I think we have a responsibility now to operationalize what certain words mean. And I think the looseness of how these words mean, I agree with you, Judy, but I think that that's a problem. And I don't think that we, in our world, I think we have a responsibility to start to operationalize things. One thing I've been thinking a lot about Peter's observation in the first session that we're kind of in the second phase of AI. We had a whole bunch of work in this area, and it kind of hit a bit of a wall. It certainly didn't scale in ways that so much hype, countless tens of millions of dollars of Defense Advanced Research Project Agency money in the United States was spent in AI research and other areas as well. But the things are really taking off now, I think, is because we're seeing the commercialization of some of these techniques. The data mining, machine learning. People are absolutely happy to just kind of throw jazzy things to help them take some of these things to market. But to call it machine learning, I'll re-emphasize, I'll restate what I said in the first session. I think this is really cool pattern finding, but it is not learning. I really think that we need to take some time as a community to kind of distinguish between learning, intelligence, pattern finding, because if we do that, then we can have a bit more clear sense of how we can be using these kinds of powerful technologies as tools or as appliances to get things done to help solve important, challenging problems.
Comes back a bit also to your question, why the last mile? It alludes, of course, to the last mile in telecommunication, right, and electricity, and so you have free infrastructure there. The last mile is typically controlled by one company, and they sell you the service, right? It's at that point of contact. Now, the recent debates, I think, around AI and discussion has very much, for me, been on the infrastructure, on the grid side, right? And very little about the last mile. So what does it mean for the end user, teacher, student, instructional designer, and so forth? As if the existence of these algorithms alone would suffice to create interesting, motivating, useful learning